Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. Our lead story of the day, per usual, is yesterday's White House press briefing, where we have the gladiators, Peter Doocy of Fox News and Phillip Wegmann of Real Clear Politics, questioning Karine Jean-Pierre on a variety of issues. And wait till we get to Phillip Wegmann's phenomenal question and Karine Jean-Pierre's disgusting answer. This one is going to make your head spin, folks. Support a true American patriot by hitting that like and subscribe button. Leave us a short, sweet comment down below. You leaving us a comment down below, folks, does yeoman's work in supporting the show and the channel. It basically forces the YouTube algorithm to send our videos out there to new viewers who haven't seen our content or our channel. We are all in belief here, folks, that we are being shadow banned. So you taking that extra step does support the show bigly. Your help and support would be greatly appreciated. With that being said, let's go ahead and roll it.
Thank you, Karine. First on the news of the day. Does it bug President Biden when former presidents suck up all the oxygen?
What's important to the president is to continue to focus on the American people. That is what's important to the president.
So he's good to lay low for a couple news cycles then.
So look, here's
Yes, Peter. Oh, I love Peter Doocy. Can we just pull back one moment and just address something here? One of the elephants in the room, and that's Peter Doocy and how he's changed over time. If you recall, when Jen Psaki, Karine Jean-Pierre's predecessor, was White House press secretary, he really brought hardball questions that kind of stumped Jen Psaki. And then when Karine Jean-Pierre got the podium and the job, he kept those hardball questions going, but it completely stumped her and destroyed her, which is why everybody had those Peter Doocy destroys or mic drops Karine Jean-Pierre videos. And so she couldn't just answer any of his questions anymore. So she just stopped answering not just his questions, but everybody's questions in the room because they're all stumping her. So he goes, well, I might as well have some fun with it. So now he's just basically trolling the Biden administration with these questions. They're not hardball questions. He's just basically going, well, I might as well have some fun with it if you're not going to answer anything or anybody else's questions. So we might as well have a good laugh. So here we are with it all.
Here's the thing, Peter, and this is what we will speak to. We will speak to the fact that this is a president that has been able to get historic pieces of legislation done. When you think about the infrastructure legislation, something that, we heard many times during the last administration, Infrastructure Week, guess what this president was able to do? He was able to bring both sides together to get this done. And now we're seeing investments in the country, a rebuilding in the country that we haven't seen in 70 years. That's what the president cares about. He cares about the fact that Medicare is now able to...
Just folks, hold on. She's throwing a lot of stuff here, and it's a lot of nonsense. Okay, you got the infrastructure thing that she's talking about that just spent a wazoo of money that we don't have. There's a lot of people from around the country that watch this show. And I know I've been hounding a lot of leaving a comment down below, but really, have you seen any of the federal government conducting any sort of infrastructure in your area? Let me know. Because I haven't. I live in California. I mean, I see Caltrans out there never working, by the way. It's just always cones and everything else going on. I actually never see anybody literally working. But that's for a whole nother video and a whole nother point. Is anybody seeing any work done? These trillions of dollars that were spent, is anybody seeing anything? Let me know, please, for the love of God.
To work, talk to Big Pharma to lower and to negotiate and lower costs. That's what the president cares about. What he wants to see is how do we build on his economic policies, economic plan that has been able to turn this country around from when he first walked in, from what we saw.
Did she just say turn this country around? I mean, literally all you had to do was walk into the office and just say, hey, go back to work. And people are going to go back to work. And then what they do is, because the government just got done shutting down everybody for literally years, and so everybody goes back to work, they're like, we made 12 million new jobs. No, people just went back to work. And you actually fabricated those numbers of which we did an episode on. Furthermore, she's going to sit there like, well, his economic plan. You've been saying that we're in a transition for literally 2 years, lady. What economic plan are you talking about? You have McDonald's laying off 150,000 people. Microsoft, Amazon. I mean, practically, you name the company, they're laying people off. So I don't know what you're talking about. Inflation's at 6%. Gas prices about to go through the roof once again. We talked about how you have OPEC and the Saudis decreasing the amount of barrels per day, and you might see a 26 cent increase at the pump, and that's lowballing it. So, You're right. Joe Biden's figuring everything out. All the problems he's caused, somehow he has the solutions to them, even though we know he doesn't.
Happened in the last administration, basically a mess when it came to the economy, when it came to dealing with COVID. So the president wants...
Can't keep pausing it. I mean, Jesus, there's so much content here. Folks, you get a lot of reactions out of me because usually it's the first time I've heard it. Usually I'll hear the questions and then I'll sit there and play it for you all. And so you're getting real-time reactions, real-time commentary from me. Folks, she's going to blame the Trump administration for an economy of which Trump didn't cause. The Chinese caused. So why are you blaming Trump? Why would you not blame the Chinese? Gee, I might have a few ideas here. Maybe because the Biden family's in bed with the Chinese. They just got $3 million from them, but no investigations there. You have Hunter Biden supposedly having a lot of business dealings happening there. No questions about it. But when Ivanka Trump has some business dealings in Russia because she has a clothing company, all of a sudden she has to shut that down. But it's okay for the Bidens just to receive millions of dollars allegedly from the Chinese. Yeah, I see how that all works now. Perfect.
Wants to do is to build on that, and that's his focus. He wakes up every morning thinking about the American people. He goes to bed every night thinking about the American people.
Okay. On the Taiwan president...
What? First of all, according to Jen Psaki, we all saw that interview, he don't do anything before 9 a.m. Okay, a lot of people are already working, get a lot of work done in America before 9 a.m. That man ain't doing nothing. He's barely getting out of bed. Okay, Lord only knows when he actually goes to bed. Supposedly he's a night owl. But you're going to tell me that when he wakes up, the American people are on his mind, and when he goes to bed, the American people are on his mind? I don't think so. Look around. The only people on his mind are the Ukrainians, the Chinese, and illegal aliens. It's not Americans. We're the ones getting shafted here. Literally, we're getting shafted left and right. I mean, you name it. It's probably because of Joe Biden. So it's amazing. And literally like a 60-second span, the amount of nonsense that was spewed is head spinning. And we're only calling out a little bit of it. We're not even going that in depth on the whole thing. Like I said, there's a whole episode that we could do just on those 60 seconds that she just spewed that nonsense.
If China tries to take over Taiwan, is President Biden still committed to putting U.S. boots on the ground in Taiwan?
We've answered this question multiple times. I don't have anything else to share.
Okay.
Answer it again.
On the China spycraft, why did President Biden say about the China spycraft in February, we were able to protect sensitive sites against collection, if that's not true?
I'm not going to dive into any reporting. That's not something I'm going to do. I'm not going to confirm any reporting.
Why?
Look, we knew the flight.
Not reporting. The DNI said today that the U.S. does not appear to have provided critical new insights to the People's Republic of China. So is it they didn't provide any new critical insights, or they didn't get anything?
I would refer you to the ODNI if you have specific questions on their reporting. What I can tell you from here, and what we have said many times, is that we knew the flight path of the balloon before it crossed the United States. We took precautions in advance to ensure that it didn't get sensitive information. And when it comes to technology like this balloon, it has limited additive value compared to other means of intelligent collection. And we have said that. And the bottom line is, this is the administration that identified the problem and took action.
This is the administration that identified the problem when we watched it leave mainland China and could have blown it up then, and watched it hover all over our military installations, gathering a bunch of intelligence of which we were told by the Biden administration wasn't happening, and how this thing was flying figure eights around all our, again, military installations, gathering whatever it needs, and when it was all said and done, it was over the Atlantic, all of a sudden we blow it out of the sky. But he figured it out, you guys. See, Joe Biden solved the issue for all of you. You don't have to worry about anything. Dude, you really, if you tried to script this administration, you couldn't, okay? Theoretically, you could say the same thing about the Trump administration, but this is a whole nother level here, a whole nother level. Well, we got Phillip Wegmann, the other gladiator here. Folks, you got to give some love to Phillip Wegmann, our boy here. The man has gone weeks without getting a question in. Look at his arms sky high. It's the tallest arm in the room right there. The man hasn't got a question in. Today, finally, he gets one in. I almost started a counter on the show to see how many days it is for him and Jackie Heinrich not to get questions in. But he gets one in. But let me tell you, folks, her response is insane when he gets talking about children and trans and stuff like that. Her response is nuts.
Okay.
Thank you. Former Vice President Pence said that if the shooter who killed 6 people in that Christian school in Tennessee was motivated by a hatred towards Christians, that the crime should be categorized as a hate crime. I'm wondering what the president thinks of that kind of designation.
It's not for us to decide.
And then today, Indiana just banned.
He wasn't asking you to decide. He was just asking for your opinion. Okay. Nobody's telling you to make a decision on this thing of like, this is what we must classify it as. Hey, what does the president think? Even if he has no say in it, just like, what does he think? We're not going to make that decision.
Puberty blockers, hormone therapies, and gender transition surgeries for minors. I'm wondering what the president's reaction is to the Indiana governor signing that bill into law, and does the president have a position on at what age these kinds of therapies and surgeries are appropriate?
That's something for a child and their parents to decide. It's not something that we believe should be decided by legislators. So I'll leave it there. Well, in the past couple of months, we have seen a record number of LGBTQI bills, anti-LGBTQI bills. More than 600 of them have been filed in state houses, and a significant number of them have been anti-trans bills. And
it's amazing on the messaging that comes out of her mouth. I know I say this all the time. LGBTQ bills, that could be about gays, lesbian, trans, queer, pansexual. I mean, there's literally a rainbow. There's a spectrum of stuff that they cover here that it's just being broad spectrum in terms of, well, there's like 500 bills in there and it's all anti this, anti that. And she goes, well, there's a lot of it's anti-trans. A lot of it is you targeting children and wanting to remove and castrate them. You want to remove their genitals. You want to take out their breasts and lop off their stuff down below. I'm trying to be sensitive here because it's freaking YouTube, but I'm trying to keep it together because it's so insane that you're going to see that basically she's full supportive. And we've already known this because we've seen the public service announcement from the Biden administration that they're all supportive of children being castrated, being given hormone blockers, having surgeries that you can't come back from. She's sitting on the podium all for this stuff. It is so, and you heard her say, well, it's up to the children and their parents to decide. No, it's up to the parents to decide, not the child. The child doesn't know yet. Their brain's not even remotely being able to formulate any sort of coherent thought in terms of trans, sex, the components of it, the outlook of what the ramifications that they're making now will happen in the future in terms of them never being able to give birth or have a child or have a family that they're giving birth to. I mean, it is so insane that we're even having this conversation today in 2023. We are performing the biggest experiment on children that's ever been done here. And you have somebody on the podium right now that's speaking as the mouthpiece of the leader of the free world that's totally for it.
Targeted at youth. And this is a president that has said that when these are some of the bravest people. He knows. But no one should have to be brave just to be themselves. And so this is a president that has been committed to this community, that has been committed to our kids in the trans community.
Oh, he's committed to kids, all right, folks. We've all seen those videos.
Trans youth, and he's going to continue to fight for them. But again, I'm just going to leave it there. Okay.
That is so insane, and kudos to Phil for actually being the one reporter in the room that formulated that question. Never gave us an age, by the way, so we shouldn't answer that one. But good God, man, what a time to be alive. And speaking of the trans community, speaking of supporting, going after children, not me, but what you're going to see here, Matt Walsh destroys these 2 trans people. Let's be careful here, folks, because we don't want to get removed and deplatformed on YouTube because it's all we got other than Rumble. Folks, Matt Walsh completely destroys these 2 trans people. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button, folks. Support a true American patriot here. Leave us a comment down below on what you think about all this. If you don't know what to write, heck, just write something as simple as good morning or good afternoon. You leaving us a comment, folks, does yeoman's work in really supporting the channel. It forces the algorithm to send our videos out there to new viewers who haven't seen our content or our channel. So you doing that really does help out tremendously. Thank you so much. Let's see Matt Walsh doing his work here.
Yep.
Hi, Matt. I'm transgender. I'm born and raised here in New Mexico. I have a graduate degree in information technology, marketing, business, and finance. I own my own home. I pay taxes. I
have a six-figure job. I'm a respected professional in Albuquerque. I'm a mother. My life experience is that I'm an awesome...
You know, it's early, okay? We got our coffee, and congrats to those that got a mug. Lisa's mama, I heard you got a mug too for early Easter present, so congratulations. Welcome. We love you. Did she say that she was a mother? Did I? I'm not sure if my earpiece is working correctly. Did she say that? I shouldn't even say she. Sorry. He. Whoops.
person. I am well-liked. I'm responsible, and I think I'm pretty cool. You touched on something. You said something earlier that for you, when somebody calls you a man, it doesn't faze you because, like, you just know that you're a man. That was interesting to me because I feel the same way about my identity as a woman. My question leading up to this, you've asserted that no one would ever see me as a woman, that nobody would ever see or could see a transgender person as a woman, and yet I have dozens of friends from diverse backgrounds, women from the reservation, a woman from Japan, several immigrant women. I have my coworkers, I have my boss, my VP, my CEO, all respecting me as a woman, my family, my long-term friends who are actually here with me. All of these people assure me, like, I'm a woman. They'll tell me, girl, like...
And that tells you something about our society and the people that you decide to hang out with. If they're sitting there and affirming some sort of delusion, that is not your friend. That's not somebody you want to hang around with. If somebody's sitting there and saying, yes, you are something in which you are not, there's a problem with that. If you're sitting there, a friend going, yeah, you are a puppy. Yep, you're a dog. Wolf, wolf, wolf. Yep. Or, yep, you're a kitty. Oh, kitty, come here, kitty, kitty, come here. There's a problem with that because that's objectively false. Truth matters, folks. Don't put yourself around people that are going to tell you you are something that you are not.
There is no way you are a man. They see me as a woman. So the question,
Okay.
how can you assert that nobody would ever see me as a woman when my material experience tells me you're wrong?
Okay. It's interesting that that's the part of my talk you chose to ask a question about, because that's not in my talk at all. I don't believe I said that no one would ever see you as a woman. I mean, it's possible, I suppose, that you could fool someone. Now, you brought this up, so I have to tell you that you brought this up. You've put your identity on the table for conversation. And so I'm going to say you wouldn't fool me at all. I mean, I see a man 100%. And I think that most people would. Now, the fact that you have people in your life who are saying to you, oh, you're totally a woman, it's exactly what I'm talking about. No one in my life has ever once said to me, you're totally a man, Matt. You know, if a friend of mine called me on the phone and said, listen, Matt, I want you to know you're really a man, I would think that there was something wrong with him. I would say, why are you saying that at all? It doesn't make any sense. So the fact that this is a conversation to begin with tells me, it only proves the point that I'm trying to make, that your identity, even in your own mind, is up for, it's something that you need to be assured of. Now, what I would like to ask you, again, because you're standing here, and so you've brought your identity on the table for discussion. So how do you know that you're a woman?
It was first when I heard transgender persons describe their experience in their own words, and this was only about 2 years ago. Hearing somebody describe things, it was a woman from like England, describing her experience, her childhood, her teenage years, and it blew my mind to be listening to her, because it was just some podcast that I was listening to while I was like doing laundry. But it blew my mind to hear somebody so eloquently and precisely describe things that I had experiences that I had experienced.
What did they say?
Okay, so...
What? We'll see. We'll see if the answer to the question ever arises here, folks. Because if you're lost, I was looking for it too. I just so happened to be looking in my brand new book, Trojan Horse: How the Left is Destroying America. Pick one up for yourself, folks. Support a true American patriot. It's more timely than ever. How the left is destroying America, folks. It's happening real time, and it's happening on our screens right now. Let's go ahead and roll it still.
I am honestly hesitant. I know that you touched earlier about the difficulty that transgender women might have in describing their identity, but I want to state, I honestly don't feel that you would engage in this conversation in good faith.
Then why are you
And
here?
so-
Why did you stand up to talk to me if you don't want to have a conversation?
Good point.
You're saying that you discovered that you're a woman. I'm asking you how you did. That's a very fair question.
Okay.
How do you know that you're a woman?
That's fine. All right. So first of all, listening to transgender people, and it was like, okay, this is a one-off, one person describing these things. Things like looking at yourself in the mirror and not recognizing yourself. Hearing compliments like, you are...
Sounds a lot like Joe Biden. I'm sorry. It's true. Who's that guy? Who is that? Mr. President, it's you. Who's president? Who is that? Joe, that's you. Who's Joe? Who's Joe? I know some of you are laughing. That was funny. I don't care who you are. That was funny right there.
Such an example, like a positive masculine role model. And just hearing that and being like, it feels like they're talking about somebody else. It means feeling alone, even when you're surrounded by guys, even when you have a lot of friends. And I was active in like Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout. I had great masculine role models my whole life. And yet I never felt like I belonged. I felt welcome and included.
Why does that make you a woman?
Because
As opposed to just a man who doesn't get along with some other men, or a man who's depressed, or a man who doesn't feel at home totally in his body, which, by the way, is a pretty universal human experience. Everybody goes through it at one time or another. So in what way does that make you a woman, though? And it's interesting. You're telling me that you listen to the experiences of other transgender people.
Well, yeah.
But what about women?
So
Because trans women are women, you would say, right?
I would say that. Yeah.
Exactly the same?
Yes.
Okay, well then why do you need to hear the testimony of quote unquote trans women? Like how you pick any actual woman in this room? In what way do you know that you belong in the same category as them?
I know because they tell me. So here was
You need them to tell you what you are?
women. Yes. I trust the opinions of the women around me.
And if most women...
It's incredible. You might try it sometime.
If most women voted and said they don't see you as a woman, would you say I'm not a woman anymore?
If who?
If most women voted and said they don't see you as a woman anymore, would you then relent and say I'm not a woman?
I would say most people on the planet have no idea who I am. I'm going to trust the opinions of the people who've spent their lives with me.
But you are relying on other people to tell you who you are, is what we're establishing.
For context, I know you like to say, everybody's rah-rahing and supporting transgender people, and yet they're still killing themselves, etc. But I'm standing here in a room full of people applauding you and asking questions like, how can I put out legislation here in New Mexico, my home state I grew up in, to try to reverse transgenderism? I'm not safe. And it
How are you
wasn't...
not safe? You just said you're standing in a room with people who disagree with you and you're perfectly fine. So how are you not safe? Okay, look, we're going round and round. You don't want to answer any of the questions. Maybe we'll end with this because we're talking about womanhood. So people can probably shout out the question I'm going to ask you right now.
Okay.
But you know that you're a woman.
Yes.
What is that?
So gender is a social thing. It only
I don't
makes
want to hear
sense
that. What is a woman? What is a woman?
What is a woman?
The word woman, define in the dictionary. Go.
A woman is somebody who is included and respected and seen and participates in society, recognized by other women. If you speak with women...
Circular definition.
That's mine. Whatever.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's not even the worst of it, you guys. Wait till we get to the next one. A few minutes later, you got another trans person coming up, completely illogical, and Matt Walsh literally destroys this person. Let's continue.
Hi, Mr. Walsh. My name is Luna, and I am a nationally registered advanced EMT here in the state of New Mexico. I am also transgender. Throughout my career as an EMT, I have responded to, by conservative estimates, about 1,500 calls for service here in the state of New Mexico. I have treated more transgender people than I can count. Who will tell me that the support of the people in their lives makes a difference in their lives? And that's been my experience as well. My question for you is, despite all of these transgender people who tell me how great things are for them, I have never once treated somebody who told me that they regretted their transition. Never once. It hasn't happened. So where is this supposed epidemic of people regretting their transitions?
So this is a huge just fallacy in general, and that's why we talk about something that's anecdotal, is you can have certain experiences in your life, but those just might be your experiences in your life, and those aren't necessarily extrapolated out to everybody else. So you have a lot of people go, well, I'm experiencing a lot of racism. That could be very well true. And then they'll sit there and say, well, America is racist because I'm experiencing racism. But it's like that doesn't necessarily fit the data set as a whole. And you to sit there and do that is, one, just factually incorrect. And two, doesn't hold up when you're questioned on the stats itself. And then when you're questioned on the stats itself, you don't actually believe in the stats itself. And that's probably what you're going to see happen here in real time.
Well, you could just ask them. Are you denying that they exist?
I understand they exist. I haven't seen significant evidence of it to nearly the same extent as people who tell me they're happy with their transitions.
Okay, that's fine. You personally haven't seen them. I have. I talk to them all the time, so I know that they're out there. I know they exist. I also know that, I know a couple other things. I also know that the suicide rate, as we established, suicidality for trans people remains sky high even after transition. And I went over in the talk why all of the explanations for that somebody on your side of the discussion might offer don't hold water, they don't work, which tells us that there's something else going on, and which tells us that there's still a deep despair there. So those people who identify as trans, then they transition, and then they kill themselves, which is a large number, they might not articulate, many of them may articulate this, but they might not articulate that they regret this. But even so, as they say, actions speak louder than words. And so it's pretty clear that there's something deeply wrong here. And it's also clear to me that if transition is supposed to make trans people happier, on a large scale, it's not working. And when you've got suicidality, rate of 50% or more, that tells me that this plan for making this group of people who are 50% suicidal isn't working. I mean, if that.
According to Joe Biden, though, it is. I mean, if you haven't seen the first segment of Phillip Wegmann's question of Real Clear Politics to White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, I highly recommend you go check it out. Links in the description for that. If you are still continuing here on the live stream with us, absolutely spot on. If you're to sit there and say all this gender affirming care that's taking place of you lopping off children's genitals and grooming them and pushing them along with these hormone and puberty blockers and all those things, if it's working out so well, and the Biden administration thinks this is working out so well too, why is the suicide rate still so high? Because if you're sitting there allowing all this to happen, and it just happen willy-nilly, and all your friends and your milieu and your whole group of people around you, your family, your coworkers, everybody is sitting there affirming you're a woman when in actuality you're not, or you're a man and they're calling you a woman, whatever it may be, then you would expect to see the suicide rate drop because it's solving the problem. You're getting what you wanted. You're getting that affirming aspect that you are, of which something you're not, but you're getting affirmed by other people, and that's supposed to kind of help you along, and so are these transitions. Like I said, you would see that go down, but it's not.
That's not enough to convince you. I don't know what else to tell you. And one other final point that I'll make as well, because we've all these questions, and I appreciate the questions. I appreciate that you guys at least are coming up to talk to me. In most schools, they won't even do that. So I appreciate that. But all of these questions are about, well, this trans person says that they're happy. I say that I'm happy. Even if I were to concede that there may be some trans people who feel like they're happy, I think even then they're lying to themselves and there's a deeper despair there, which is what led them to reject themselves in the first place. But we could put that entirely to the side Because what I'd like to do is get back to the question of, is it true, okay? It might make a man, maybe there's a man out there who feels happier if we affirm him as a woman. Is it true, though? Is it actually true? And I would say that the truth matters first.
Yes.
Before we get to the emotional questions.
If you don't sit there and pursue truth as a society, and you're going to hold on to what is false, your society is dead in the water. And that's exactly why I keep plugging my book, Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America, because they are lying to you. The left is lying, and what they're doing through their lies, through their indoctrination, through their methodology, through their tactics, whatever it may be that we're covering here in the book, and exposing them and how they're destroying this great country from the inside out, they're doing by putting out falsehoods rather than sitting there and pursuing the truth, which is what Matt Walsh is doing here. Man and women has been truth since mankind has been around, since mankind's been around. And somehow along the way, you have these people that woke up going, well, all of a sudden I could sit there and become a woman, or a woman can become a man, which ain't happening.
So I'll throw it back to you. Biological male says that he's a woman, wants to be affirmed as a woman. Is it true? Is the claim that he's making about himself, is it actually true?
Yes.
How? How do you know that?
How would you define a woman? Because you've asked other people up here to define how we would define a woman. How would you define a woman, Mr. Walsh?
An adult human female.
And how don't trans people, how doesn't a transgender woman fit that definition?
Female.
Because they're not female. They have, you said that you are a biological male, correct?
I said I'm transgender. I might be intersex for all we know. About almost as many people in the world are transgender as intersex, and
Well,
a lot of people don't know.
Well, but that's a different conversation. Intersex, that's a genetic anomaly, that's a medical condition. So that's a completely different conversation. That's also not a third gender. That's a genetic anomaly that occurs within the sex binary of male and female.
And I believe, and don't quote me on this, I believe even that would produce a spectrum of leaning towards one sex over the other. That I believe even objectively you can look at and say, yes, that's you're catering more towards a woman than you are a man, or a man more than a woman. So again, somebody might be able to correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe that still holds true in terms of even intersex. Nobody's really like, well, shoot, I'm not 100% sure what's going on here. And even that, you could actually dive further into more of the biology of it and actually be able to dictate which are they leaning more towards. It's not going to be 50-50.
So what you're saying is that a quote-unquote trans woman is a female?
By the definitions I'm familiar with, yes.
So how would you define female?
Through my training in healthcare, there are several different categories for how we define sex. People bring up chromosomes. People also bring up hormone levels. People bring up all sorts of other categories. Lots of people don't fit neatly into a gender binary, even people we don't consider to be intersex. It's a complicated spectrum.
It's not complicated, but you also didn't define. So what is a woman? What is a female? What do these words mean?
It's complicated, and I know you're not going to like that answer, but that's because there are no simple answers in human biology.
Let me ask you a question.
You guys,
Can I ask you one last question?
just let me finish. You guys like to bring up high school level biology classes a lot. I get that a lot, but people who go on to more complicated biology classes will talk about sex as a spectrum.
It's not. It's not.
Well, biological researchers would disagree with you.
Well, then they're full of shit, the ones that would say that. There are...
Not wrong, Matt. Nice job.
There are male gametes and female gametes. Oh, I had one last question.
Wait, Mr. Walsh, can I ask a question?
I just have one. I had one quick. Can you come back for 1 second? Because this is an important question. You said you're an EMT.
Yes.
Okay, if you're responding to a health emergency. Biological male, somebody with a penis, is having a medical emergency, and they say to you, "I think I'm having a miscarriage." Would you check them to see if they're having a miscarriage? Would you consider that a possibility for them?
Look. No, but that's because some people don't have body parts. Doesn't mean they're not a woman.
Okay. Sounds like we've established there are some people who, in principle, can get pregnant, and there are some people who can't. So there's two categories, otherwise known as binary.
Lots of women can't get pregnant either.
Yeah, but they're still of the nature to get pregnant. The only
But
reason
they can't get pregnant.
Yes, but
truth matters, right?
it does. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Truth matters, and they can't
Okay,
get pregnant. That's the truth. So how are they still women?
Because they are for the same reason that I can rightly say that human beings have two legs. And if a person is born with only one leg, that doesn't call into question the statement that human beings have two legs, okay? A person being born with one leg doesn't mean that now legs are on a spectrum and we can't say anything at all about how many legs a person has. Who knows? They could be a centipede. You know, they could have 100 legs. No, we know human beings have two legs. If a human is born without two legs, something went wrong. They were supposed to have that second leg. Something went wrong. If you meet a person on the street who only has one leg, maybe they had an accident. Maybe they were in war. Maybe something, maybe they were in a car accident. Maybe they had cancer. A leg was cut off. But you know that something went wrong because by their nature, they're supposed to have two legs. Same thing for a woman. A woman by her nature can get pregnant. A man by his nature never can. So if you meet a woman of childbearing age, say she's 28 years old, and she can't get pregnant, you know automatically that something has gone wrong. And she can go to the doctor and find out what that thing is, even if they can't fix it. So that proves that women by their nature can get pregnant because the simple fact that she can't shows you that there is something wrong. This is what is known as the exception that proves the rule. Whereas if a male with a penis can't get pregnant, no doctor on earth is going to run tests to see what's wrong with it. Because they already know it's that he's a male, and there's only male and female, those who can get pregnant and those who can't. So, that's it.
That is a mic drop right there, folks. I know it's a little long, but I think it's important to see these conversations in their totality because you see where we're at as a society. You see the denigration of our school system. You see the indoctrination and how damaging it is from the left and what they're doing to our youth. And yet you have people that are basically filling the heads of our children and enabling these delusions that they can actually sit there and go from male to female and female to male. And sadly, there's even adults that are pushing this and grooming this whole ideology where you can't reverse it. You made a decision, you're never coming back from it again. And it's a terrible thing to see. And I might have seemed a little bit harsh in my reactions, but I do think it's crazy, sadly. And I wish all these people all the best. I don't want them to harm themselves. I don't want them to commit suicide. If anybody's having those types of thoughts, please call a hotline because there's people that care about you. Even though I don't agree with them politically, I think it's silly. I do care about those people and I want them to get the help that they need. I think that's extremely important. We're all human beings. We're all in this world together and we're all navigating it and transversing it in different ways. So I'm hoping these people, and by these people, I mean the trans community, the LGBT community, if they're having any sort of issues, that they can seek after that help that they need, but not the help that they need in affirming something that's objectively false. Seeking after that help that's going to tell them and guide them along that correction and that way to getting that help that's going to fix the issue, not exacerbate it or mask it. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Let's end it off here regarding the legal suit, the indictment of Mr. Number 45, the best president, let's be honest, folks, in modern America, better than even Reagan in some aspects. But what I wanted to do is kind of pull up some clips here from lawyers. We have Trump's lawyer previously here talking about the indictment and the statute of limitations. And then we'll move into another lawyer, I believe on CNN or MSNBC, discussing what he thinks about it. It's John Bolton. And just getting kind of more of an informative viewpoint on what the heck is going on with this whole thing, because nobody really knows. So here's Megyn Kelly's show, and you have Alan Dershowitz. I'm sure many of you have heard of this man, prior Trump lawyer, talking about the arraignment, talking about the indictment, as well as the statute of limitations, who he's a fan of here in terms of the statute of limitations, and basically that being the best argument. Let's roll it.
Quickly, for a ruling on the statute of limitations. Remember the argument on the
Wait, let me ask you about the okay. Can I ask you about? Let me ask you the statute, because I had a debate here on the program yesterday. Arthur Aidala, who I know you know and like, and another lawyer, state attorney from the district that covers Mar-a-Lago and Palm Beach, and they were saying they weren't that moved by the statute of limitations argument, and I know you love it. And so just for the viewers who are listening now, it's basically, we believe we're speaking at a time at which the indictment has not yet been unveiled. We don't yet know exactly what's in those 34 counts, but we still understand it has to do with the Stormy Daniels hush money payment, and that Trump didn't record it properly on his business records. He made it look like a legal payment to Michael Cohen, who paid it $130,000, and that's not in and of itself necessarily problematic, but that would normally be treated as a misdemeanor. He's elevating it to a felony by saying it was used to cover up an underlying crime, which would have been an in-kind contribution during the election run-up. Right. It's a long and convoluted thing. So dumb it down for people who are not lawyers. What is the statute of limitations problem?
Here, the statute of limitations is very important. It goes back to the origins of law. And there's a 2-year statute of limitations on the misdemeanor and 5 on the felony. The theory behind the statute of limitations is it doesn't run when the person is an escapee. He's running away. You can't find them. And so the statute has an exception. If you can't find them, if he's a fugitive, or if he's out of the state continuously. Now, keyword. Why can't you indict him if he's out of the state? I have the best proof. Nobody could ever beat me on this argument. Of course you can indict him when he's out of the state. What's the best proof? They indicted him when he was out of the state. This indictment came down last Thursday. He was in Florida. If they could indict him while he was in
I was sitting there golfing up a storm, but I'll tell you, you wouldn't believe this, folks. Folks, I'm telling you right now, you wouldn't believe it. They sat there and said, hey, you're going to get indicted. And I said, by what? What'd I do, send $130,000 of hush money to a porn star? Really? Really, folks? You're going to believe that? They've done nothing. They've done nothing but go after me and my family. They've got over everybody other than Joe Biden. They've got over everybody other than Hillary Clinton. They've got over everybody other than Barack Obama, and they're going to go after me over some hush money? Some hush money? They indicted me while I was in Florida, sitting there visiting the golf courses of Palm Beach, the beautiful lands that DeSantis has made. Ron DeSanctimonious. I'm working on it, folks. I really am working on a good impression for you. But look, we're talking about this statute of limitations, and kind of even simplified even more for you, because it does get kind of difficult in understanding what the hell's happening here. Is one of the mechanisms that they're trying to push here is that the hush money ran out of the statute of limitations, if I'm getting this correctly. And you have Alvin Bragg saying, hey, we can continue this statute of limitations by attaching it to another crime of this hush money payment or another payment. And furthermore, we can attach it to New York and continue the statute of limitations because he was in another state, and they basically took that time in other states and tacked that onto the ever-increasing statute of limitations, basically. And that word continuous is important because he wasn't always continuously living in other states. He was traveling around, and thus the statute of limitations theoretically shouldn't hold up here in this case. And furthermore, we know that they can't utilize it of what she's mentioning here in terms of the indictment because they literally indicted him while he was in another state. So I think it's a pretty strong case here.
Florida, why couldn't they have indicted him while he was in Washington?
Exactly.
Why couldn't they have indicted him while I was in Florida the last 2 or 3 years?
Correct.
So the policies behind the statute of limitations are clearly violated. There's no good reason they didn't indict him earlier, except that nobody wanted to indict him earlier.
Exactly.
DAs, U.S. attorneys, federal election officials said, no, we're not going to indict him. The statute of limitations requires you indict somebody as reasonably quickly as you can within the terms of the statute. Now, there is a New York Court of Appeals decision, very wrongly decided, which basically defines the word continuously as continually and says that every day that he's out of the state doesn't count. That's ridiculous.
That's what I was just referring to. That's insane. And I believe, and I'm really trying to reach back when I was an accountant on this, specifically taxation. I believe they do that in terms of where you're living in the state as well, in terms of tax penalties and interest. Now, that's way out of the scope of this video here, but I actually agree with Dershowitz on this whole thing. I think it's insane to sit there and that you're going to stretch out a statute of limitation because you're not continuously living in that state, and so you can just tack that on. I think that's insane.
Ridiculous.
Yes,
the
thank
policies
you.
behind the statute of limitations are clear. He should not be allowed to be tried. He's been denied a speedy trial, a fair trial, a trial in the right venue. And the misdemeanor is a made-up misdemeanor. Here's what the misdemeanor basically says. It says that when you pay hush money to hide an adulterous affair with a former porn star, and you pay $130,000 to make sure your wife, your family, the voters, the business associates don't learn about it, you must immediately record that in your public corporate records. You must stay in your corporate records. I paid the money to keep it quiet, but now I'm telling you I paid the money to keep it quiet, and it'll be on the Megyn Kelly show tomorrow. Has anybody ever truthfully described what a hush money payment was for? Has anybody in history ever been indicted for that? If you don't have that, you don't have anything, because you can't get the felony without first getting the misdemeanor. There is no misdemeanor here.
Now, granted, we don't have the supplemental evidence to go along with this. And to be fair, this is a lot of hearsay, but look, we're just trying to gather what we know so far and listening to the legal experts themselves. And look, you don't even have to be a fan of Trump to see that this is a bogus indictment here. You literally have people that hate Donald Trump. They're going, yeah, this isn't much. And that's why I present to you here John Bolton, that literally wrote a book basically going after Trump. He doesn't like Trump. He literally says that in this clip here, and he explains how this is a lackluster indictment.
We're joined now by former ambassador and Trump National Security Advisor, John Bolton. Thank you so much for joining us. Two quick questions for you. One, big picture, what do you think of the indictment?
Well, speaking as someone who very strongly does not want Donald Trump to get the Republican presidential nomination, I'm extraordinarily distressed by this document. I think this is even weaker than I feared it would be. And I think it's easily subject to being dismissed or a quick acquittal for Trump. Just speaking, going back to the days when I represented Jim Buckley and Gene McCarthy and the constitutional challenge to the underlying federal statute here passed in 1974, I can say there is no basis in the statutory language to say that Trump's behavior forms either a contribution or an expenditure under federal law, the two key definitions at issue here. If it did, it would mean that every single expenditure a candidate made could be taken to have something to do with his campaign. Do I buy a $1 comb to comb my hair or a $10 comb to comb my hair? If you can construe the statute to cover this behavior, then I think it violates the First Amendment, because you're deeply into territory that makes this statute, absolutely, federal statute, too vague for enforcement. And as what I understood the district attorney to say, that he thinks there's a New York election law involved here, all I can say is the Federal Election Campaign Act absolutely preempts any state or local law to the contrary. How could it be otherwise? You've got one law governing corporate finance in a presidential election at the federal level. You're going to have 50 state laws interfering with it. So he's just wrong on the applicability of the New York statute.
A lot to digest there, but one other thing I want to note is that
there's not really a lot to digest there. I mean, he was extremely clear about what he just said. And by the way, what he's tackling here in terms of what John Bolton said is different than what we heard from Dershowitz just in the segment before with Megyn Kelly. Dershowitz is going after more so the statute of limitations. He's going more so after the federal and state level, as well as just kind of what you even categorize as campaign finance and what is even involved in that it's very vague, or at least what they're trying to do is create it very vague. And at that point, when it's vague, how do you uphold that? And then you're more transitioning into a First Amendment argument. I mean, it wasn't hard to follow whatsoever. John Bolton did a great job. Again, John Bolton is not a fan of Trump.
the statement of facts describes Donald Trump inviting David Pecker, the CEO of the National Enquirer parent company, AMI, who helped pay off Karen McDougal, the Playboy Playmate of the month, or of the year, I should say.
I believe this is what they're trying to attach here, to extend the statute of limitations for the Stormy Daniels $130,000 of hush money so that they could sit there and indict him and basically pull this off. I mean, the strings you are pulling here as Alvin Bragg is insane. It is nuts. We've never seen anything like this. What this man is doing to Trump is wrong. And Donald Trump Jr. in yesterday's episode wasn't wrong with saying this is some communism type bleep. This would make Mao blush. He wasn't far off on that statement. That's for damn sure.
Who was given $150,000 to keep her story quiet, catch and kill. The defendant, Donald Trump, invited Pecker to the White House for a dinner to thank him for his help during the campaign. So that's after Trump was president. And then there's another reference where Donald Trump and Michael Cohen, lawyer A, meet in the Oval Office at the White House to confirm the repayment arrangement. Now, that's obviously an attempt to show that this was election-related, help provided by Michael Cohen, help provided by David Pecker. It's also, you know, as was said during the Clinton presidency for different reasons, rather gross that this is happening in the confines of the White House.
Yeah. Well, I think the defense attorneys don't have to prove that Trump had a different intent. They simply have to show reasonable doubt.
Which is extremely hard to do. I mean, the whole reasonable doubt thing, and this is something kind of even Ben Shapiro's echoed, Megyn Kelly, a lot of people that have law degrees, and we learned this even in business law as well for our taxation degree, or in other words, our accountancy degrees. It is extremely hard to prove that. And Trump is set up really, really well to prove the opposite of which Alvin Bragg's trying to go after him for. And I hope that he highlights that here.
That the intent was to affect federal election. And I can come up with a very plausible reason why a person would have the intent of paying these hush money payments. He doesn't want his wife to find out about it.
That's what John Edwards claimed. Yeah.
And I think to the average juror, that's a pretty convincing argument.
Yes.
They do address, I should just say, I mean, they do address that in the documents where they say there was discussion about delaying the payment until after the election, perhaps even not paying until after the election so that they didn't have to pay it if Trump won. So I'm just to say, the idea that it was just to hide it from Melania is kind of addressed in the documents.
Right.
But that doesn't change anything. You basically just sat there and asserted and basically made the case of what Trump is going to do and say. And so it's going to be hard to provide that negligence or that assertion in the first place. So Trump is kind of set up for success on that front there. I don't really know why she's adding that in here. Let's see what John Bolton has to say about that comment.
I'm not saying that's the fact. I'm just saying the defense can make a case
reasonable
that puts reasonable doubt in. This is in a criminal case. They often say you have to prove 95%, not a civil case where you only have to prove 51%.
And I just want to say that.
Exactly right. And again, I'm not a lawyer, folks, okay? So take what I have to say as a grain of salt. I'm just trying to sit there and reiterate and kind of package this in a way that's digestible, that's easily to be understood, that we can all kind of figure out what the heck is going on here. Because when you hear all these stations, whether you're listening to the Daily Wire, the Blaze, the Bald Brad Show, you're listening to CNN, MSNBC, ABC, the Associated Press, I mean, whoever it may be, everybody has their opinion. And at some point it comes across as a bunch of spider webs and trying to figure it out. There's really two mechanisms to this whole thing, one of which we saw with the statute of limitations, and the other end we just saw with John Bolton's idea. So let me know what you think about all this. We'll try to keep you up to date. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Bald Brad Show. We went almost an hour today, folks. I love hanging out with you. Go over to baldbrad.com. We got a store there, folks, for you to buy merchandise. You could buy shirts. You can buy our book on Amazon. Link is in the description, folks. Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. Get your friends a copy, folks. Buy yourself a hard copy, paperback. Even the ebook's a little bit cheap, folks. It is a phenomenal read. We're getting great reviews on Amazon. I appreciate all those that are reading it. Jen, I know you're reading it. Again, Lisa, thanks for buying Mama a mug. They're fabulous to drink out of. Everybody who has one, why don't we cheers each other, folks? Thank you so much for always supporting the show. Leave us a comment down below. It does yeoman's work in supporting the show, folks. We're all of firm belief here that we're being shadow banned. There's no way in heck we get 25 views in an hour with over 32,000 subscribers. There's just no way. And it's consistent in a uniform. It's a uniform distribution. That doesn't happen unless there's some sort of interference taking place, folks. So leave us a comment down below. Really support us. It could be anything. I do read them. I love hearing what you have to say. And folks, we'll be back here for another episode of Bald Brad Show.